Well, going to school in Blackline was fine, you know. It was tough times, and there was no great accommodation in the school, you know. The toilets were on the outside in a muddy yard. So I then went in the Skillendane to the brothers and stayed 5 or 6 years in there.
Where did I go to school? Up in Corraglass. It's about 3 miles from where we lived. We had to go over fields, and then we could have gone the roadway, but we weren't allowed. So, but then when we'd be coming home, we used to come the road. We wouldn't tell mother and father, and we'd cross some fields, and they thought that we were coming. But we used to come so as we could be with all the other scholars. It was all right. There was only 2 classrooms, and they were separated by sliding doors, and the master was that side, and then he married the mistress, so there were Master Cox and Mrs. Cox. They were the teachers then, but Mrs. McKeown came later on, you know, after Mrs. Cox finished. And we had an ink that you dip the pen in, an ink well, we used to call it, in the desk. And you dip the pen in it, and then you wrote, you know. So you'd get, if you did anything wrong, you got a knock with a ruler on the knuckles from the master. Yeah. Master Cox could have been a bit, you know, he would give you a whack. And if you did anything, that he'd give you 4 or 5 with a ruler on the hand.
But there was good days in the school, you know. There were actually. We were very lucky in teachers, because we had one teacher and she was lovely, and she never did hit one of the children, but we all loved her, so you done anything she wanted. There was only the one room and there was only the one teacher.
Yes.
And she taught everything that had to be taught. But then it was later on then when Rose McKeown came.
Yeah, Rose McKeown came there too, yeah.
And we had to change. But having said that, they were all nice. There was none of them cross or none of them beat us or anything like that.
To me, the school was, can I say it, disaster. Yeah, we had a very bad teacher. Well, I'd read it. She used to roar and screech at the children, and she had a big cane and she used to hammer them. And I was an infant. I used to cringe at the thoughts of having to go near her. So eventually, I done 1st, 2nd class, and I left then. I didn't stay about a year with her. She was known as the Banty Sheridan. I don't give a damn what I was, that's all I knew. Definitely, she really put me from learning anyway, that's all I know. Well, I learned enough, but not as much as I could have.
I went to school when I was 4 years of age, and, you know, it wasn't a very user-friendly type of a road to school, because there was travellers camped on the side of the road, and there was no threat to travellers, but they'd have dogs, old terriers and greyhounds, and they'd always have a few horses. And the tinker's horse wouldn't be eaten along the side of the road, he'd be eaten across the road. You know, his arse on one side and his head in the ditch. And a job to get him to move. And he wouldn't want to be moved, and he could put back his lugs and more or less go to places. You were afraid to go in front of him because he could go bite you, and if you went behind him, he could throw his hands at you.
I started school when I wouldn't be in 4 till September. I started school in May. Because one morning we were getting ready for Warfoot to milk to Black Lion. My brother and sister was going to school, and my father says to me, he says, would you like to get a photograph taken? Of course, I said I would. Right, he says, you'll go to school today. So he got me dressed up in my Sunday best and combed me hair and fixed me up and sent me off to school to get my photograph taken. But the photographer didn't come for 3 or 4 days. So I waited on for 3 or 4 days, and that was me started school. So I started school in May and I was in 4 till September. But they kept me. But Mrs. McCabe, I have to say, was a real nice old lady. And if I were at school, I was with her for, we said, I've been with her for, we say, 4 years. And if I went to school, we say, with buttons missing off my jacket or maybe a tear in my trousers, you know, the usual crack. She'd tell you, if you bring a button tomorrow, I'll sew it on for you. So she used to mend me clothes in Belcree School. So that's something I have to say About Mrs. McCabe, she was a real nice old woman. I met a son of hers only about 20 years ago. And I had to decide, I had to stop him and tell him the story about his mother. He used to sew on the buttons of my jackets. If there's any rips in my clothes, she'd sew them for me.
You went to school and it rained and you had Wellingtons and you dumped the water out of them and sat all day, and there was a big fire and the teacher clocked over the fire and we got no heat. But it didn't do us any harm. Some of it was nice and some of it was horrible. We had bad witches and we had lovely girls as well. Yeah, and one of the real cross ones asked us to pray. She was going to America. We said novenas and it worked. We got rid of her. We had lovely teachers after that.
There was an old master. I hope the fellas in heaven and Midland, because I think it wasn't their fault. It was the system at the time. I often tried to figure out where it came from, but it was in the church, it was in the schools, it was in the parents, it was everywhere. But he battered with a stick all day, and I seen him battering the fella on the head, and no, I'm not going to say I seen more nor hair on his head anyhow. I seen the blood oozing through his hair, and like I never seen that man since he was at school, and that's 60 years more ago. But learned nothing there. There was nothing learned. The mistress was reasonable. She done singing, and but she used this rod as well, and it was an awful environment to launch a child of 4 years into. Like, if I was asked, if you asked me what's the best change, I'd say it's in the schools. Now, we have our family and we have our grandchildren go to school, and they go off happy to school. And like, the school it's an extension of the home. It's even better than the home in lots of cases. But I have to say that towards the middle of the 50s, they came out a newer breed of teachers, like younger teachers, and they were all right. They were. Now, I had experience of it. Well, one particular man, I think he's alive yet, and he was a gentleman.